Happy Monday, folks. Brad Holmes spoke about free agency, and I really want to talk about this one because it is important to hear what he says, and I do not think he's BSing. He is exactly what he says is what he's pretty much going to do in free agency. And so we're going to break down what he said on 97 Won the Ticket, what it means for the Lions here very shortly as free agency period is about to open up. Before we do that, though, we're trying to get to 10,000 subs. So if you're watching this bad boy and you're not subscribed, why not hit that subscribe button? Let's get LNU to 10,000. That's what it's all about. And pretty damn close. So just keep on getting it done. So let's get into this right here. Brad Holmes spoke about the new cap situation. If you don't know, the cap pretty much went up $20 million for the Lions. I think we're sitting at $57 million right now, quite a bit. So we got some money to spend, seventh best in the NFL, really good cap. So when you see that, maybe you're expecting the Lions are going to go ape in free agency, but I don't think that's the case. And this is what he said. When you're budgeting in advance in free agency, and especially when you're looking past your own free agents, you probably have a good decision on what you do internally and your own players in terms of re-signs and extensions and that kind of stuff. Agree. I think when you have this type of money, we don't need to be going crazy in NFL free agency, but we do need to re-sign some of our own guys. And so when you have this type of cap space, we got to think about this year, next year, the following year, and the following. And we have the ability to re-sign Aleem McNeil. Maybe they re-sign him in this free agency period because we do got some money. He's already going to be on the team, but you can re-sign him to a long-term deal. You can do that with St. Brown. You could do that with the smaller players as well. And you can bring back your own guys in free agency. So I 110% believe that what he's going to do there, not necessarily going after the biggest names in the world. He says, continue on. When you look internal or externally, what you see is you have to be most careful when you do externally. Okay, and that's correct. You might want to open up. Do you want externally? He says, well, can we get another depth player or external ad? Or do you want to say, we'll have a handful of those players we're looking at and add to external standpoint, and now that we have such available, then maybe we can get a bigger fish. You got to be extremely careful in free agency. You do. You don't want to hand out a gigantic contract to a player that's not going to live up to that. We've done that multiple times with Trey Flowers, and it's kind of looking like that with Sutton right now a little bit. You know, I still think there's hope for him, but this is what happens when you give out big money and they don't live up to the deal. You got to be extremely careful when you're getting a free agent. There's free agents out there that you most definitely could sign, and I think that it's less of a risk, right? Who are at a position to where you can kind of tell if they're going to be good or not, like an edge rusher, right? You can look at a Danielle Hunter, or in that case, a Josh Allen. You know these guys are going to be good, and a Danielle Hunter is not necessarily the biggest fish, but I think you're less worried about paying somebody like that than paying another player. Not saying you get like a Saquon Barkley, but what if a team were like to do that where he is the player's injury prone, or they've showed bursts but not consistency? That's where you got to worry for. You know, remember, some of these teams are letting them walk for a reason. Not necessarily all of them. Sometimes their teams cannot pay for it, but you got to be careful. Know what you're handing out, because you don't want to get stuck on a bad contract. 100% agree with this philosophy there. Continue on. It's going to be the same approach we always have, because I think it is in the past best conference. It's easy to win in the headline. It's easy to win in March. That's easy to win, but man, we're trying to win in December. Those are two different perspectives, and that's how you got to plan it, and that's how we're going to approach it. Agree fully. Agree fully. It's not about winning in March. It's about winning in December. And you look at last year's free agency period. Alex Anzalone, who brought him back, not a lot of people were too excited about it. Ended up being a really good signing. Really good signing. Okay, so it's important to look sometimes outside. You look at the free agents we did externally, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, injury. Now, I'm not going to be mad for him being injured. It's one of those things. But that's the case. You have players, Manuel Mosley. You pay money out, you got nothing in return. You got to be extremely careful, and you have to have that same mindset. We do a lot of 1 year, 2 year deals, right? That's what they're probably going to do in this free agency period. So don't expect some gigantic contract. With that said, it doesn't necessarily mean they won't go and get a Danielle Hunter, because he's not going to need no 5-year deal. So they're going to do the same philosophy. And I like that philosophy with not the gigantic contracts, because it's not going to hurt you for the long haul. If it doesn't work out, Manuel Mosley was a 1-year deal. If it didn't work out, oh well, it was just a 1-year deal. You're not stuck on this contract. So doesn't mean they're not going to go for a big fish, but they're going to be very strategic and understand and let the player know, look, you're going to have to do it on a 2-year deal. You're going to have to do it this way. And if you don't accept it, we're not going to get you. That's really, really important. Continuing on, we'll adjust in different circumstances we need to, but overall approach, that's not changing. I'm not a big believer in, when you really look deeply into one player away mindset, when you look into the narrative, oh, that's just that one guy away, and that's really not realistic, because you're saying one player you might sign, and that one player in March, and then the one player look at black and white in the depth chart in March and April, and then all through the summer, and then the one player's not available in October, November, December. Injuries, right? That's exactly what we're talking about here, and that's what he's talking about. And I really hope when he does sign his free agents that we stay away from the injury prone. That has not been the philosophy as of late, but I'm hoping they do that in this approach. That's a little bit worrisome here about that. Is when you get your free agents, try not to get players who is consistently injured. Now, look, I don't mind doing a 1-year veteran minimum on any player. Emmanuel Mosley, for example. It's not, if he doesn't do it, it's a minimum, right? It's not that big of a deal. But I'm not wanting to pay out bigger deals to somebody who's been consistently injured. His free agency approach is going to be the exact same it has been since he has been here. Even though we got money, it's going to be the same approach. So don't expect us to get Chris Jones and then Josh Allen, and then we get L'Jarius Sneed, and don't expect all top guys. Don't expect it. Maybe one bigger name, like we did with a Cam Sutton, right? And then smaller deals. Maybe get lucky with a player who thought they were going to get a bigger deal, and they didn't, and then they signed with the Detroit Lions. Reminisce of what we did with C.J. Gardner-Johnson. So continue that approach. And it is a little if you think that we're one player away, which I think we're very close to that, doesn't necessarily mean that's the route they're going to go, because we do have the NFL draft as well. And you got to be fiscally responsible. It is to me, it's like a 2-part process. You got free agency and the draft. Free agency is 25%, draft is 75%. I still think it's really important. I'm a huge proponent of free agency. I'm just a bigger proponent of the NFL draft, and you're seeing that's why this team is good, because of Penei Sewell, St. Brown, Lee McNeil, all the players, Futu Melifonwu, the players that we drafted. That's where primarily we're going to get better. It's not necessarily in free agency. For sure. You continue on minor details. He has an idea. The team wants to go with extension players, not providing updates on Jared Goff and other contract situations. Of course, not going to do that. I do think that they probably bring back, or they extend Jared Goff. They extend Lee McNeil. I would like them to get St. Brown to do that this offseason as well. I think that's extremely important. Mahomes talked about, he reiterated that it's going to be talent over need, and I 100% agree with you right there. It should absolutely be BPA. I think that's the way it's got to be in the draft. Everybody gets so mad if we don't get the position of need every year, it feels like, but it never works out when you do that. Just go best player available. Best player available. You do that, your team's going to be good. Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, Brian Branch, Jack Campbell, all great picks. It wasn't necessarily the biggest needs, but they upgraded the roster. So don't get mad in the draft when that occurs. Because confidence in kicker Michael Badgley said there will be competition this offseason. I've been saying this. They're going to probably draft a kicker or undrafted. Been saying it all offseason. That's what they're going to do. He is not lying to you when he says this. So fully expect him to get a kicker in the draft. Well, views the NFL Combine is a way to check athletic boxes, but finds more values in character and evaluations through interviews. 100% I concur with that. The NFL Combine is not the end-all, be-all. Okay? You think that's the end-all, be-all, then you're going to be sadly mistaken. Aiden Hutchinson didn't have the biggest arms. He was the most athletic. All of that. But he was the player the Lions got, and he was much better than other pass rushers. Okay, so don't get too wrapped up in the NFL Combine. It's just an addition. You look at their character. You look, the best thing to look at is the play on the field. If the player is dominating on the field and he is doing it against high competition in college, but he doesn't have the best 40 time, he doesn't have the longest arms, who cares? He did it in college at a high level, and he was dominating the competition. That's the way it should be, folks, is that. So, look, I like Brad Holmes. I like his approach. Don't get too upset if we don't get all the biggest names in the world. It's okay, 100%. Even if I don't get, I want Danielle Hunter really bad. If we don't get it, it will stink for me because I like the player, and I think it'd be great for this team. But it's not the end of the world. The Lions went to the NFC Championship. We need to trust Brad Holmes. In Brad Holmes, we trust. I trust him. Trust him fully. So I fully expect that. So let me know in the comment section your thoughts on this. With that said, folks, adios.